Sophomore slumps and pumps. In this one, we're going to look at last year's rookie class of 2023 and see with some of the top players from last year, if we're expecting them to have a sophomore slump or if they're going to pump, meaning their numbers are just going to keep going up. So in this one, we're going to look through the draft class. Basically, the guys have played. I'll just give my thoughts on some of these guys and if I think they're going to have a down year or a better year than their rookie season. We've seen guys recently have massive sophomore season pumps like Paolo Banchero, who went from averaging 20 points and 3 assists to 23 points and 5 assists and become an all-star in his second year, as well as a guy like Darius Garland, who went from averaging 12 points and 4 assists to 17.5 points and 6 assists in his second season. But then recently, we've also seen guys like Chris Duarte, who went from averaging over 13 points per game to just 7 points per game in his next season, and then 3 the season after that. All right, now we're in the computer here, so let's just start at the top of the draft. Obviously, we got Victor Wembanyama. I think this is an obvious one. I think that he's going to have a pump season, just build on what he did last year and have an even better season in year 2, even though year 1 was already pretty amazing of what he was doing, but did get off to somewhat of a slow start, so I think there is room to pump for him. In his rookie year, averaged 21 points, 10 boards. But we saw towards the end of the season, in the last month, he averaged 25 points, nearly 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 5.6 blocks. And the month before that, over 23 points, almost 5 assists, 12 boards, and 4 blocks. Definitely got way better as the season went on. I think he's just going to continue that. I mean, if you looked earlier in the year, in October, averaged 16 points, and then November, 20, December, just 18. In 2024, he absolutely was going off, and I do expect him to have a huge season in this next year, so I think an obvious pump candidate. And then we got Brandon Miller. This might be controversial, but I'm going to say that he may have a slump season in year 2, but not a massive slump season, and I think the reason for that is because, LaMelo Ball is coming back, who commands the ball a lot and a lot of shots. They also brought back Miles Bridges, who's just another kind of ball-dominant shooter and scorer that is going to be there. I think there's going to be less to go around for Brandon Miller. I think we could see a slight decrease. Miller got up to over 17 points per game, but most of his damage was done in the end of the season. Compared to earlier in the season, like in November when he was playing with LaMelo Ball, he averaged 13 points per game, and then in December, 15 points per game. And even January was still at 16 points a game. It wasn't until February where he really got to start rolling and was getting the ball in his hands a lot more. There was really not much competition for shots. A couple of games getting up 25 shots. So I can see a slight regression. Honestly, I might say around 14 or 15 points per game for Brandon Miller next year. I think we could see a slight dip in his production, but nothing crazy. Maybe more efficient if we look at some of his shooting numbers, 37%. We maybe could see that go up even to around 40. And his field goal percentage of 44%, I think we could see that go up, but maybe the points per game down a little bit and his field goal attempts as well. But I mean, who knows? LaMelo Ball might get injured in the second or first month of the season, like it seems like he always does, and then gets shut down, and Miller can have a big year again. All right, then we got Scoot Henderson. I think this is a pump here for Henderson. Obviously, they got rid of Malcolm Brogdon, who was a veteran there, just kind of taking up minutes from Scoot Henderson. So I do think the minutes will be up for Henderson, and he did come on a little stronger at the end of the year. And I really hope they run out a starting lineup of Henderson, Simons at shooting guard, Shaedon Sharpe at small forward, and then I guess Jeremy Grant and Klingon or Ayton. But I do think that Scoot Henderson will be the starting point guard and increase his numbers from last year. He actually finished with decent numbers, getting to 14 points per game. Only 5.4 assists. I do think we could see an increase in the assists next year for sure. We saw the last month of the season he averaged 19.4 and almost 10 assists per game. And the month before that, in inconsistent minutes, playing just 29 per night, he did get to 15 points per game. But I'm thinking he's going to see mid to high 30s of minutes next year. So really like his chances to pump next season. All right, last year's 4th pick, Amen Thompson. This is a tough one to call because I don't know what the minute situation is going to look like for him in Houston. I really do hope he starts, and in that case, he should be a pump as well. On the year, he averaged just 9.5 points and 2.5 assists. I think we're going to see both those numbers go up, probably even the rebounds as well, as he sees more consistent minutes. But last month of the season, over 12 points, 8.5 boards, almost 5 assists per game. And even the month before that, when he was just getting 26 minutes, averaged over 13 per game and over 8 boards still. So I do think he is a pretty decent playmaker, great rebounder, and a decent scorer. I think he could see like 12, 13 points if he is starting, over 3 assists, and over 7 boards next year. So I do think this is a great pump candidate. Next, we had Ausar Thompson. I'm going to say that this is going to be a slump for Ausar Thompson. He started off last year really good. Unfortunately, had some injuries. Didn't play after March 9th, but he still saw over 25 minutes per game last year. I think he's going to see less than that now that you have Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris there with Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. I don't see Thompson starting with this team. And then you also have Sasser off the bench, and Thompson honestly kind of fell out of the rotation last year, so I could see him having a slump next year with kind of a log jam ahead of him and with him falling out of the rotation last year. So I'm going to go with slump for Ausar Thompson. All right, then I'm going to skip Anthony Black because he didn't really play last year. So I mean, if he does play like over 15 minutes per game, obviously these numbers are going to pump. Koulibaly I think is an obvious pump here. I did a full video on the Wizards kind of rebuild. I just hated the Sadiq Bey signing and then possibly putting Alex Sarr at power forward and starting Valanciunas, because now it probably means that Koulibaly is going to come off the bench. I really hope he doesn't, but it looks like either him or Kispert's coming off the bench, and maybe even both. But I hope at some point he gets into that starting lineup because I think he could have a nice year. He just averaged 8 points per game last season, but a lot of people think he has a lot of potential. He didn't really show it last year, honestly, but a ton of people are high on him. I'm going to ride with them and say that he's going to have a nice season, and I just hope that he will get a starting spot eventually and play over 30 minutes a night pretty consistently. All right, we're going to skip more of these guys that didn't really play that much last year. I'm even going to skip Cason Wallace because he had inconsistent minutes. I'm going to go all the way to Derek Lively. I think he's an obvious pump candidate. Played extremely well in the NBA playoffs. I think he's just going to build on that heading into next season. I really hope that they kind of have the same rotation where it's like Gafford for 20 minutes and then Lively for 28 minutes a night. I think that'd be really nice for him, and he's going to be having a massive season. He ended the year at just 8.8 points and 6.9 rebounds. Had some huge games in the playoffs, though, like 11 and 12, 11 and 13 against the Celtics. Against the Wolves, one game he played just 9 minutes, but some other games 14 and 9, 11 and 9 here. So I think he could be like a double-double player almost every single night if he's given 25 plus minutes a night, which I think he should be in line for next season. Now we're going to come all the way down to 16 here, Keontae George. I think he's going to have a massive pump season. He looked really good at times with the Utah Jazz, but there was a lot of competition for shots with Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton out there. Without both those guys, if they get moved, possibly without Clarkson as well, we will see a lot more of Keontae George. He averaged 13 points per game on the season. Honestly, if Markkanen and Sexton are both gone, I think he's going to average like 20 points per game and like 7 assists. I'm really high on him. He had some huge summer league games. Even when he shot terrible percentages, he still ended the games with like 30 points. So I think he's a big-time scorer. We saw it at times last year. I mean, this stretch here where he had 31 and then 0 where he only played 6 minutes, 29, 26, 25. A great stretch right there for him. He had a 33-point game here against the Warriors. Another 30-point game against OKC. So I think he's a big-time scorer and can also be a good facilitator, which I think also would move up, especially if Sexton and Markkanen are gone, like I've said like 3 times now. I'm definitely liking Keontae George as a pump. All right, now we're moving to 18, Jaime Jaquez. Kind of surprising. I'm going to give him a pump rating because I do think without Caleb Martin, he's going to have more consistency with his role on the team and maybe even be their starting small forward. We obviously saw what he could do at times, started the season not playing that much in October, but in November played 29 minutes per game and averaged almost 14. And then the next month playing over 33, averaged 16. In January, another nice month, and then started to tail off as far as minutes in February, March, and then April he was down to just 21 minutes per game and 8 points. Looking at that, his numbers, he ended under 12 points per game. I think when he is given that starting role at small forward without Caleb Martin here, he could average closer to 15 points and get over 30 minutes per game. I am liking Jaquez here as a pump for next season. Podziemski, I'm going to give him a pump rating as well because I do think that he's going to have a bigger role on this team without Klay Thompson. And then also, kind of a hot take here, I do think that the Warriors are going to be pretty bad and Steph Curry's going to be resting a good amount next season, which means some point guard minutes for Podziemski, starting point guard minutes for him, and just more minutes overall. I do think he's going to have a pretty nice season next year. He ended last year just over 9 points per game, 3.7 assists, which I think we could see go up. His best month last season was February, where he averaged almost 32 minutes. His points were 10.8, 5.6 assists, and 6.7 boards. Definitely some pretty solid numbers here. I think if given 32 minutes next season, he can even up those averages to like 12 or 13 points and 6 assists. Liking Pajemski as a pump. Next, we got one of the most excited players in Summer League, Cam Whitmore, who's scoring in bunches and throwing down some insane dunks. But I think he's going to have a down year next year because the Rockets just have so many players that they're going to play. Honestly, last year, a lot of his time came in kind of garbage time and when other players were injured. And next year, I just don't think that's going to happen as much with Houston unless there are some unexpected injuries. But it seems like he may struggle to get minutes, especially early on. He was an exceptional player as far as per 36 minutes, averaged over 12 points per game. And when you see how many minutes he played, less than 19 per game last year, that's pretty impressive to get over 12.3 points per game. It is tough to keep that up. Shot 36% from 3 when he is kind of a streaky shooter. So definitely shot well. Started 2 games, but did have some DNPs in there as well. So I do think he's going to come off the bench and play pretty sparingly in some games, which definitely will hurt him. And then to keep up this scoring of over 12 points in 18 minutes per game is incredibly hard to do, and I just don't know if he can do it. If he's getting even less than 19 minutes per game, to score over 12 points is pretty remarkable. So I think he's going to have a hard time doing it. I think he's going to have a slump season just due to the fact that he's not going to be out on the court. If he was playing 20 plus minutes a night, he would be in for a pump season, in my opinion. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one on the sophomores heading into next season. If I think they're going to have a sophomore slump or a pump, so let me know what you guys thought. Also, I probably missed some players that had decent rookie seasons that I didn't really talk about, so let me know down in the comments what you think about them for next year. Check out another video here on the end card, and we'll see you over in one of those videos.